I witnessed it all the time as a nurse taking care of my own people who were dying from alcohol. But in 2015, I went to my aunt's house, and because I had my daughter there, I went to go pick her up. But when I was getting there, there was 4 police units lighting up the street. I got scared because my daughter's just right there. So I go, and luckily, everything's okay at my aunt's house. But I go in, and I see a little girl sitting on the lap of one of my cousins. And I didn't know who this little girl was. I'm like, what's going on, and who is this? And she was 2 years old. 2 years old, little pretty little girl. And they told me, 2 years old, she walked across a street that people, zoom by, cars drive by. At 2 years old, she was already a survivor in her own home. They told me, and I saw the mother sitting in the back of a police unit. Our core value of nurturing the young, which we held so dear, was being lost, was not being provided to her. That's one story. Another story, a young lady in her 20s was having a going away party. And ironically, the going away party was for her to go to get treatment. The next morning, she was found dead in her home. The third one that I want to just impress upon all of you, which really shocked our whole community, was a man, a young man too, in his 20s, maybe not even maybe 20 yet, who was out with his friends, and they went out partying over a jealous rage over a girl. His friends beat him up, dragged him from a vehicle. They dragged him, and they just dumped him out at his his mother's footsteps, left him for dead, and he passed. But the core values of respecting one another was lost, and in that young woman's life, respecting our bodies, respecting who we are as people was lost. From those, seeing what happened to my community, and I'm pretty sure we've heard what it's done to other communities. For me, I had to do something. If it's just talk about it, then that's what I need to do. But I didn't want to cry, but I didn't want to cry, but I see those individuals. They're now our ancestors, and speaking now, saying, tell the young. If you have to teach them when they're young, tell them what it's going to do to them. Whatever money you can, put into it, or having our elders speak about what it means to be Zuni, or whatever community you come from. Who are you? What are we? What can we do? Yes, sir.
My name is Randy Andrews from the Bishop Tribal Historic Preservation. I was wondering about your communities, or the community, all of our communities. I know in our community we had black water, but fire water, whatever we wanted, call it. But what happened was that generation that was doing that was fetal alcohol syndrome, and I looked at my community members, and I see that in there, and then I see the community members, their children now doing drugs, and we have like meth in the community. So it's like, well, these poor little children, they have all these strikes against them, and I used to be on our health board, and we wanted to do a study about our children being addicted, so they did that, but they used the national. I said, no, we need to make sure that our communities know how close it is, that it's right here. And so they did, and they said, well, there's a percentage of the children now that are being born that are addicted. And when I used to be in the education program, you know, they've always told us that we're introverts. We don't get up and talk or anything like that. So, but with our children with this disease, you know, they end up being put into special education because they didn't, you know, the teachers didn't realize that, you know, they had a disease. They didn't know that because they didn't know the community members. So in our community, we look at, because we all kind of like know each other. So you look at, you know, who's in special education. It's like, well, you shouldn't be in there. I mean, you have a disease. You should be someplace else. You know, our Indian psychologists or the workers that were there, I guess they weren't really that knowledgeable, so they weren't able to pull them out and, you know, and kind of talk to them and special, you know, and try to heal them. So, and I don't know if that's, you know, if that's part of your, you know, because we can't do one. You gotta heal the whole disease, and that's part of the disease.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm from Australia. I've got to say, I'm working with Vietnamese men that will be in detention, and that's what I'm looking at too, is starting back from, you know, when they were younger, and it's just that pathway that, you know, they're taking, but I don't want them to end up in the big prisons and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's why I work with them.
Just let them ask us.
Oh no, just that, you know, I'm hearing you, but, you know, and it's sad because our governments, rather than pour money to our tamariki, our children, and to helping them overcome some of our poverty issues, like the New Zealand government just committed another $1 billion to building more beds in new prisons. So rather than deal with the issues now, they're preparing for the future.
That's right.
And I think that it's you know, a commonality amongst us all.
But I think, if I may also, is the fact is that we all have the same problem. Watching those stats, we all say, "That's what are you doing with our figures?" You know,
Yeah.
those are mine. You know, but the thing is, I think we're focusing on the governments rather than focusing on ourselves and taking our lives back, taking our culture back, and taking our own destinies in our communities and saying, enough is enough, and we're going to do it our way. You know, as a result of today, I'm going home and we're going to start writing laws for our community, our laws. And we're going to then start looking at policing it and how we're going to police it. I don't know, I haven't got a clue because I'm a conceptual ideas man. But, you know, every problem is a solution in working clothes. So we're going to be putting on our working clothes to find it. But we can't sit back any longer. Fetal alcohol syndrome. I work in the child and adolescent mental health service, and one of my pets, me and another colleague, is on that pathway of trying to teach and we're saying no, pointless teaching 16-year-olds. We've got to teach 8-year-olds about alcohol syndrome. Because, and you don't have to teach them about sex education. You teach them about, as my granddaughter this afternoon in her performance has said, that we've got to teach them about they are the whare tangata, they are the house of man. And in order for, if our people are well, then our children will become well. And it's how do we share ideas to actually get strong, like what's happening, you know, the world is starting to stand up and say, let's be counted, you know. You know, we're people at Standing Rock, they're starting something. And I think let's let the ball roll and keep on rolling and start to do those things in our own communities, because our kids are too precious to lose. And so, you know, and our men, you know, what's happening with our men? Saying 50% of, we're 17% of the population in New Zealand, we're 50% of the prison population. You know, it's just not acceptable anymore. But the interesting thing is that government is asking the people who run the prisons, they ask the people who are the probation officers, they're asking the people, the administrators of the hospitals, what's the solution? Because what you're doing at the moment is not working. There's something wrong with that question. And who they're asking it to, the people who are actually doing it, wrong. And they ask them, what's the answer? So what do they say? They tell them what they know, is what they're doing. And that's why it's not going anywhere. Compliments to presenters, felt the wailu, the spirit, because you're working with it, you're dealing with it. We see it, and we know straight away of people. That's auntie so and so. That's my cousin so and so. That's uncle so and so. That's my great grandfather. You know. My daughter's one of her great granduncles spent 50 years in prison. 50 years when the world was saying that the man who started the Second World War it was inhuman to keep him in prison for 50 years. Yet at home, the only reason he was found is that one of his nephews was going through his gear and saw a genealogy. And he asked this guy whose genealogy was. He says, mine. And then we took nearly a year to bring him out of prison. After a couple of hours out, I think he had to go home. And then eventually 2 years after he got out, he died. Our people, he was lost. He was kept in a prison that the government knew he was there. And these are the kind of things that happen to us all the time. And I don't know what the solution is, but I think the solution is within all of us. But the problem is, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? One's half of the solution's over here, one over here, and it's how do we get it all together and get that picture going. Kia ora tātou.
Questions? I have one. So you spoke about tribal responsibilities, and where we're at right now is that we, in our juvenile system, it's mainly tribal members all the time, especially in the summer. Tribal members rise, and what we'd like to know is, you said, is Arizona and California, is there any resources out there that we could get a hold of to, like, or state resources or something like that we can get in contact with to help fund maybe some programs that we can have with youth or people that we can connect with that have done something like that? Or those community, or you said there's 90 and there was some communities that did have that responsibility program.
Communities have responsibilities, period. That,
Yeah.
and the responsibility is prevention.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, by the time I get the guys, they're looking at long-term sentences.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at life, they're looking at whatever. The men and the women. Even the violence with women is increasing. Drugs are cheaper. They're going into blackouts. They're killing people. It's about prevention, and it's not Shannon Rivers or Sandra or our sister, talking about it. It's when you go home and you sit down with your little nephews and nieces, and you see this violence on TV, you see this rhetoric on TV, you see them playing constantly with their head down. Get them away from that. All of that is negative energy. It is not energy that we're used to as traditional people, as Native people. You need to get them outside.
Yeah.
You need to get them to do something different. Culture, language, ceremony, whatever. And I told the Amamutsan I met about a year ago. They said, we only know a few songs, and I said, sing them.
Yeah.
I only know one song, and I said, sing it. My boy, who's 15, he's kind of awkward on the drum, but he's singing, and it sounds horrible. But sing it, right? If you know one word, if you know one, use it, reuse it over and over. Because I don't want to keep going. My job, I want to be obsolete. I want Lenny Foster to be alive when Peltier gets out. I want Funmaker to say, I'm done working in the prisons. I want that to happen. And it can't happen unless you youngsters, you teenagers, see the value of who you are as Indigenous people. That's the value. What is that value? Culture, ceremony, language, the voice. What did Oren say this morning? The language is the core.
Soul.
The soul is the soul. That's the song, everything. I sing a lot of songs, but a lot of the guys in prison, they don't know how to sing nothing. The only song that they know is the song of violence and desperation and despair. I'm trying to get them to sing while they're in prison so that they can be free. not just that moment, but when they get out. You have to do that. I'm sick of seeing these when I go home to the res. I'm tired,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm young comparatively to some of my elder brothers, you know. But we have to go home. You know, Irvine, great, Orange County, okay, but I wanna go home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't wanna live in LA no more. I don't wanna work, I wanna go home. And I will go home. Follow that on Facebook, you'll see I'm home all the time. I try to go home as often as I can. I wanna go home, because I wanna help the people. I wanna help the people, and that's what you should be doing. I mean, if you're an engineer, build something environmentally safe, something sustainable. If you're a teacher, don't teach the same shit that they've been teaching us for 50 years, man. Be an Indigenous teacher. Be that. Be a language, cultural teacher. Well, that one word will take you to 20. That's what I believe. But I don't, believe me, states and counties, they're not gonna give you resources.
Yeah.
They want your money. Private prisons want your money. They want tax money. Federal governments want that money so that they can operate these prisons.
Yeah.
Dismantle the system. That's your job. Dismantle it. So I think how are we doing? She keeps looking at me. So, any other questions before we go, guys?
Comment. You're asking about resources for the juvenile hall, stuff like that. Stop looking for resources and be the resource.
That's right.
I've gone into juvenile hall and I've taught the language. I've taught their language. And I have seen them switch. I have seen the glow on their face when they can say, oh, manaho, inanya. They can say their name. They can say where they're from. And it broke them from that cycle what they were in that juvenile hall, because I was able to pull them out and sit them down and teach them. I didn't go looking for resources in the county, the state, or nothing. I was the resource. So my thing to you is be the resource. If you don't know your language, go learn it.
Mm-hmm.
Go share it. Even if you just know how to say hello, go share it. You know how to say your name? Go share it. You know where you're from? Go share it. You have a song, you don't know a song, learn one. And if you don't know who to learn from, I'll be happy to teach you.
Good man.
Somebody? No? Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.